Welcome to Southwark Cathedral, where the family, friends and colleagues of PC Keith Palmer gathered just a few hours ago for the officer's funeral. The cathedral chosen because PC Palmer had served most of his time in the Met policing South London. At his family's request, there were no cameras allowed inside the service, a private goodbye. What came before was a very public farewell. Thousands of police officers from around the country joining Londoners and even colleagues from America to watch the officer's coffin make its final journey from Westminster to here. The route avoided Westminster Bridge, the scene of last month's killings. The flowers on PC Palmer's hearse read, "Number One Daddy," a painful reminder that while London has lost one of its chief protectors, a family has lost much more. This from Simon Harris.
In the sunshine of a spring day, PC Keith Palmer began his final journey from the place he called work, and the place where last month he lost his life. His job was to protect Parliament. But the flowers on the hearse bore testament to another role. Keith Palmer was a devoted family man.
He was so down to earth and so normal. He came to work because he had a family to support, and that's all he ever wanted to do, was be there for his family.
I know he was a fantastic dad and a fantastic husband. If you could paint a picture of a perfect policeman, you'd be painting a picture of Keith Palmer.
PC Palmer was one of 5 people to die in the murderous attack by Khalid Masood, but his status as a police officer killed in the line of duty in the precincts of Parliament afforded him the honour of a service funeral in Southwark Cathedral. Ahead of the funeral cortege, the pavements were lined by thousands of police officers from across the country. Every Met officer was flanked on either side by a colleague from another force. One by one, they bowed their heads as the sombre procession passed by. Office staff, building site workers and tourists watched too.
It's just really lovely to see everybody standing in solidarity, and it's beautiful, the peace.
He's a fellow Charlton fan. I'm a Charlton fan. I did a nice memorial to him on Tuesday night. I wanted to further pay my respects today.
My little brother, he's a police officer back in Denmark, and of course it affects me in a special way.
For Scotland Yard's new commissioner, Cressida Dick, the funeral of a murdered officer was her first official duty on her first day in the job. Other mourners included senior police officers from around the world.
It's just devastating for us to lose a police officer anywhere in the world, and particularly the close relationship that the New York City has with London. It's just devastating.
A few hundred metres from the cathedral, the police motorbike outriders escorting the hearse were replaced by officers on horseback. In the sky above Southwark, 2 Metropolitan Police helicopters performed an aerial salute. While below, colleagues carried PC Palmer into the cathedral. The funeral was relayed on loudspeakers hung the length of Southwark Street. Mourners were told Keith's blue lamp will shine bright forever.
Keith was an extraordinary man, and we've just finished a terribly, terribly sad and poignant service to say goodbye to Keith.
The police had paid their respects and said their final farewell. Now it was time for PC Palmer's family to say goodbye at a private cremation. Simon Harris, ITV News, Southwark.
After years of congestion and long delays on the Dartford crossing, the government set out plans for a new tunnel under the Thames today. That, it says, will end the queues. It will be built further up the river, linking Tilbury and Gravesend. 77,000 cars would use it every day, relieving the traffic on the busiest river crossing in Britain. Motoring groups say it is long overdue, but those living in villages at either end of the new site say it will cause irreversible disruption. Our political correspondent Simon Harris reports.
It's one of the worst pinch points on the M25, and when it's bad, it's grisly. The Dartford crossing can no longer cope with the traffic, so the government has decided to build a new one. The Lower Thames crossing won't be a bridge, but a tunnel, a few miles downstream. The total cost could be as high as £6 billion.
This is the busiest crossing in the country. It's probably the busiest stretch of motorway in the country. It's a real issue. A day like today, when we've had big jams at commuter time, we clearly do need to do something about capacity across the Thames, and this project will deliver that.
The new route, known as Option C, will run from the M25 at North Ockendon, through the Essex countryside, under the Thames east of Tilbury and Gravesend, before joining the A2 in Kent. For car drivers and truckers caught in the daily Dartford gridlock, the new crossing can't come soon enough. But for villagers along the route of the new multi-lane highway, it spells misery, and environmentalists fear a spike in pollution. In the Essex village of Orsett, the idea of a motorway at the bottom of the garden is bad enough. But some residents stand to lose their homes when the bulldozers move in, even though they've only just been built.
There's a good chance that I could actually lose my home. If I don't lose it, the best I can look for is looking out over a motorway for the rest of my life.
South of the Thames, the new road will cut through the Kent countryside, close to the parish church of St Mary's in the village of Chalk.
The loss of any greenbelt land must be a loss for the whole nation, and as a principle was put in place to prevent this kind of encroachment.
The most recent new crossing east of London was opened by the Queen in 1991. The Dartford Bridge was designed to take the pressure off the existing crossing, the Dartford Tunnel. That was built in the 1950s, as ITV News reported at the time.
Well, now I'm going to talk to one of the men. Well, now, Mr. Tunney, I always thought that most of the work nowadays was done by machines, but it seems men still play a part. Is it a hard one?
Yes, just the same as before the war.
Picks and shovels?
Picks and shovels.
But is another tunnel the right answer? Opponents say no.
This is a very old-fashioned solution to problems which could be much better solved by investment in strategic rail freight to get these lorries off our roads.
This new crossing will add about 70% additional capacity cross river, so it will really go a long way to help alleviate some of the problems we're already experiencing at the Dartford crossing.
But not yet. It could be 2027 before the new crossing opens.
Simon, so the government's saying this will end congestion, but will it?
I don't think anyone disputes that the current crossing isn't fit for purpose. It was built to handle 135,000 vehicles a day, often has to cope with 170,000. The arguments for and against the new crossing will doubtless be rehearsed at length during the planning process, but essentially the government has made its decision and saying, yes, this crossing will help the problem at Dartford at the moment. Ministers argue that it will also boost the economy by £8 billion and create 6,000 jobs. It's going to prove especially popular with the freight industry because, in effect, the new route will be a bypass around the existing crossing for traffic between the Channel Tunnel and the Channel ports and the Midlands. But we are seeing history repeating itself. The old tunnel couldn't cope, so they built a bridge. Now the bridge and the tunnel can't cope, so they're going to build a new tunnel.
All right, Simon Harris, thank you. The charity behind the controversial Garden Bridge over the River Thames today defended its project, saying last week's critical report disregarded the facts. Dame Margaret Hodge said it would be a waste of taxpayers' money to go ahead with the bridge, on which £37 million has already been spent. And our political correspondent Simon Harris is on the South Bank for us this evening. So, Simon, where does this leave the project tonight?
Well, Lucrezia, Dame Margaret Hodge didn't pull her punches last week when she published her long-awaited report into whether the Garden Bridge was value for money. She said the cost had risen from £60 million to more than £200 million. The project's finances were precarious and it would be better to scrap it now, even though taxpayers would lose millions. Well, today, the charity behind the project, the Garden Bridge Trust, hit back, saying Dame Margaret's assessment was based on inaccuracies and personal opinion. She ignored the facts and made sweeping statements.
She's spoken to largely our opponents. If you look at the list of people she's spoken to, she didn't speak to any of our funders. She didn't speak to our fundraising committee, who have the responsibility to raise the money. So I think it feels slightly like it's very opinion-led. You know, it's very one-sided, it's biased, and I think it feels like an unfair portrayal of the situation, really.
Well, the bridge, the Trust says it's still confident it can raise the £56 million needed to build the bridge, but clearly Dame Margaret's report hasn't done that fundraising process any favours. As for the MP, she stands by her report, says it was grounded in evidence. The ball is now in the Mayor's court. It's up to Sadiq Khan to decide whether to keep the project alive or to kill it off.
Simon Harris, many thanks.